Have you ever met someone who seems to truly belong in nature? The kind of person who's perfectly content sitting by a quiet river, tending to plants, or walking alone through the woods, not because they're hiding from life, but because they've somehow found peace there? Some people see that and think they must be lonely, or maybe they just don't fit in with society. But the truth is far more layered than that. Choosing to live close to nature isn't always about escaping the world. Sometimes it's about finally hearing yourself in a world that never stops talking. In psychology, this tendency is connected to something deeper, the need for sensory balance and emotional grounding. The modern world is loud, overstimulating, and filled with constant comparisons. Everywhere you look, someone's selling success, perfection, or noise. But nature offers the opposite: silence, rhythm, and truth. For people who have felt overwhelmed, judged, or unseen, being in nature feels like a homecoming. It doesn't demand that you perform. It doesn't compare you to anyone else. It simply allows you to be. Some people turn to nature because, let's be honest, they're tired, emotionally, socially, financially. Going out, keeping up, being part of the crowd, it all costs something. Money, energy, time, sometimes even your sense of self. When someone says, "I'd rather just be in the mountains or by the sea," it might sound simple, but what they're really saying is, "I'm done trying to prove my worth to a world that keeps moving too fast." In a way, living close to nature becomes an act of quiet rebellion. It's saying, "I don't need more, I just need enough." For people who have struggled financially, being surrounded by nature can feel freeing. There's no bill attached to watching a sunset, no price tag on breathing clean air. It's a kind of wealth that can't be bought, but can absolutely be felt. But let's be fair, not everyone who lives in nature does so out of peace. For some, it's a kind of withdrawal, a reaction to feeling misunderstood, isolated, or left behind. They might not have found connection in people, so they found it in trees, rivers, and skies instead. And while that might sound sad to some, in reality, it's still connection, just in a different language. Nature listens in silence, but it never leaves. From a psychological perspective, this is called restorative solitude, a state where people seek stillness to restore their inner balance. When life feels chaotic, we instinctively move toward what feels safe and predictable. And what's more predictable than the sunrise or the changing of the seasons? Nature has no hidden agenda. It doesn't care how much you earn or how many followers you have. It accepts you completely, as you are, something many people rarely feel from the human world. For others, it's not even about peace, it's about healing. When you've been hurt, betrayed, or disappointed enough times, the simple rhythm of nature can feel therapeutic. The quiet of a forest doesn't ask you to explain yourself. The ocean doesn't interrupt your thoughts. The mountains don't tell you to move on before you're ready. In that sense, being in nature is like entering a conversation where you're finally allowed to be honest, even in silence. Yet, there's another side to this story too. Some people can't understand how anyone could prefer solitude over social life. They might think you're wasting your potential or you're running away. But maybe that person isn't running away. Maybe they've just realized that peace doesn't always come from people. Sometimes it comes from the space between people, the quiet moments where you don't have to perform or explain. There's also a scientific side to this. Studies have shown that time in nature reduces cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and increases dopamine and serotonin, which are linked to happiness and focus. So maybe those who crave nature aren't strange at all. Maybe they're just more attuned to what their bodies and minds actually need. Maybe they've learned that peace isn't found by adding more into life, but by subtracting the unnecessary. Still, we have to acknowledge the other side too. Not everyone can afford to live this way. Some people can't take time off from work, can't move to the countryside, can't slow down even if they want to. And for them, nature might feel like a luxury they can only touch in short moments. A park bench during lunch break, or a few minutes of sunlight through a window. But even the smallest connection, can remind us that the world is bigger than our problems, and that stillness is always waiting for us to return. So when you see someone who chooses to live close to nature, don't assume they've given up on the world. Sometimes they've just chosen a version of the world that makes more sense to them. They're not antisocial, and they're not naive. They've simply learned that peace isn't something you chase, it's something you create. And for them, nature is the easiest place to do that. Maybe they found what most of us are still searching for, a rhythm of life that doesn't demand constant achievement, but instead reminds you how to breathe again. Because when the world becomes too much, nature quietly whispers, you don't have to keep up. Just be. So now let me ask you, are you one of those people who feels more alive surrounded by trees, mountains, or the sound of rain? Do you feel like the world outside is too heavy and nature is the only place you can finally exhale? Share your thoughts in the comments, because maybe you're not escaping life at all. Maybe you're just finally coming home.